Welcome. This is the SIG Network meeting for September 29th, 2022. Tim, like you're saying, we got a packed schedule, but let's start it off with triage.
Indeed. Let me share a window. I saw, as usual, a bunch of people running around doing triage yesterday and today, which I'm always appreciative of. We have a fairly large number of them, so we'll try to go through quickly. First on the agenda, something UDP from the host. I see Antonio in on it and linking to PRs. Antonio, are you here? No, Antonio. Okay. Since he's on it, I'm inclined to just leave it alone for the moment. I didn't read it to digest it.
Assign me as well. It looks like he pinged me on it, but I missed it. So that's a better way for me to find it.
Got it. Okay. Kube proxy losing changes if restore fails. Dan?
So this came up in the minimize IP tables restore thing. Basically, the change trackers, when you ask them what changed, they then immediately forget the answer after they've told you. And so if we go through a round of sync proxy rules and fail IP tables restore at the end, then the next time we go through, it won't remember about the changes that happened last time. And they'll already have been, they'll take effect in the IP tables rules, but for the other things that we use them for, which at this point is just updating contract, it will forget about them. So we'll leave contract stuff dangling. In the past, we would have left node port stuff dangling as well.
Cool. Is there an obvious way to attack it?
There is not, other than totally rewriting all the tracker stuff. And I put a note at the bottom, maybe we just want to fix this in KPNG since the bug has always been there and no one has ever reported it.
Okay. I mean, I've always been suspicious of the trackers. They were always sort of sketchy. So I'm not surprised to see something like this pop up. Okay. Marked as triage accepted. We should mark the bug. Okay. I have not looked at this one yet. Allow endpoint size controller and controller name not const to reuse.
Somebody wants to export the endpoint slice controller to be used, which I opposed. I tried to use the strongest language I could, but feel free to.
Yeah, I've been interested in this one too. I need to comment on it. I think there are uses where endpoint slice controller is being used. Like I think of multi-cluster service, for an example. Implementations of those are taking endpoint slice controller code, forking it, and doing their own thing. I would love to make that a slightly easier process. Maybe we take some of the logic in endpoint slice controller, move it to a library that can be used more broadly. I'm not sure. We need to be very careful here, but I think there's something, but I need to form my thoughts.
Okay, I've assigned it to you, but I've not triaged it. So if you think it's real, you can go ahead and triage accepted it. And if not, then you can go ahead and make a case for closing.
So I just pasted in chat. Lars had suggested the same idea in KPNG a few weeks ago. So there is interest.
Cool. Great.
Okay.
So I don't mind taking like the code out somewhere and then they can import it, but importing from this place is just a bad idea. Yeah.
Anybody who imports Kubernetes as, or Kates.io Kubernetes as a Go module is doing it wrong. There are no guarantees about safety for that module. I wish that we could move all the code into an internal directory and just stop people from doing it. That said, people do it anyway, and I'm not above breaking them. But if we want to move it out, we should be careful not to make our own life difficult, right? This is why the staging tree exists. Okay, that's on Rob. Kube proxy does not work with IP tables 188. Dan, I started to read this and I got so lost in the weeds. Can you catch us all up?
Okay, so haven't seen this latest, or no, I guess I am caught up. Somebody claimed that if you have a system with IP tables 188 on the system and IP tables 187 in the kube proxy container, that it will not work. And they explained why, and we freaked out and filed an upstream IP tables bug. And then we realized that the explanation that they gave makes no sense. It assumes kube proxy does things which kube proxy does not actually do. So we have at least 2 people reporting this. They're both using IPVS. We know that IPVS isn't broken for everybody. We haven't figured out what is going on yet.
Okay. I went off and I read the upstream bug though, and it was pretty worrying to me, the position of, I mean, to distill it down to something trite, we don't care. Is that an unfair assessment?
That is not an unfair assessment. Their opinion is that there is no guarantee of compatibility in IP table save, IP tables restore output between even minor versions of IP tables. And that while it will always work going up, if you're going to downgrade, you have to like delete all your rules and recreate them. Like but hey, we're using less IP tables these days. Like the IP tables cleanup thing actually really helps here, because it means that we're definitely not using the same rules within the kube proxy container as we're using from kubelet anymore. So
yes,
if there were such incompatibilities, they would go away.
It comes down to how they render it into NF tables rules, right?
Yeah, they're trying to change the IP tables legacy interface to use better NF tables rules on the back end so that it will be more efficient, which is a good thing. But there's no easy way to do that and completely preserve compatibility. There have been some discussions offline that didn't make it into their bug report, and they're actually going to be talking about it at some upcoming, it's not LPC, but some other NetDev or something, some kernel network hackers meeting, and figure out if there is anything better that they can be doing in the future. But
okay, well, I'll leave this one as it is for now. We'll revisit it in a couple of weeks. Network policy blocks access to Nginx ingress controller. I haven't looked at this one. Ricardo is on it. Ricardo, are you here?
Yeah, I didn't look at that yet. I will take a look. Sorry, didn't have much time.
I just saw your name on it. I thought maybe you put yourself there.
Yeah, I will take a look into that.
You can tag it if you're too busy to. Ricardo, just tag me in it if you want.
Do you want to take care of that, Andrew? I think it's something from the Helm chart, and not from.
Yeah, it's. I mean, 90% of the time these issues are someone's using network policy wrong. So
yeah.
What network plugin are they using? Also, is that specified?
Cloud.
No, as usual, most of the details sections are left on the
related
Windows.
Plugin? Maybe
on Windows.
So at Jay, it's
yeah.
Jay's problem, not mine anymore.
I just reading the title, I wondered if it was the case of because the ingress controller is in the cluster, they need to actually add and allow from that namespace. But I haven't read the bug report, so you guys.
Well, it says that they do that. They add and allow, and it still gets the same problem. It's like the second sentence in the bug report there. So
see, that will teach me. That'll teach me to read it instead of just talking about it. All right, next. We have a flake in EDE conformance related to session affinity. Okay, and did somebody assign Antonio, or did he do it by himself? All right, well, Antonio's looking at it. Wow, okay. Leave it open and revisit. Kubelet does not recognize multiple options in resolve conf. So this is the there's two resolve conf open issues, right? There's the search.1, which I think is now resolved, and there's this one. So the problem at hand is that somebody found in the wild an Etsy resolve conf that looks like this. And specifically that it has two lines that are both options. And our code just picks one of them. I think it just takes the later one. And the proposal is to try to merge them together.
There's a PR on this.
Yeah, and my inclination was there's no specification for resolve conf that says what we're supposed to do in this case. And so I was trying to say, let's just do nothing. But it sounds like it actually is impacting somebody. So I just saw this morning. So I guess this is on mine. This is assigned to me, yeah. All right, I'll look at this today and follow up on it. Pods getting killed after startup probe failure.
Apparently this one's assigned to me, but I think I missed it.
This might be the one that we assigned to you in your absence last time.
Yeah, that could be it.
It is almost a month ago.
We should point out they're using a very old Kubernetes version. So if what is happening to them can't be replicated on something current, that's not getting fixed.
What's the latest on it? Maybe I did comment on this on them.
It's 118.
Yeah, I did. I think we're getting some cold shoulder from the author.
Okay, so we gave them a ping 2 weeks ago. Give them one more cycle, and then if no response, we'll just close it. Okay. Kubeproxy cannot run in non-privileged mode. I remember looking at this, but I totally forget what we said.
It's a sysadmin, and I was thinking we should at least be able to run it on netadmin, and somebody said, yes, we tested it and it works, but we don't have any tests in A2E that actually works with netadmin. So for us to say to everybody, oh, you don't need sysadmin, you can run it with netadmin.
Right, because we don't, I think in EDE, we don't even run kubeproxy as a container, right?
We run it privileged, as far as I know.
Do we run it as a pod though? I guess we must. Okay. Are you still on this, or should we just go ahead?
I'm watching it, but there is a bunch of syscalls, as far as I remember, that need privilege mode. This might be the only problem, but otherwise it should be able to run in netadmin using netadmin capability, and that's it.
Could you break out the sysctls into an init container, run that in privilege mode?
Yes, that's the current thinking I had. Thank you. But it's a spot on. It's a point. Like right now we're on privilege mode. Right, or at least we tell people to run privilege mode, or we don't tell people the maximum privilege that we need. So people just run it in privilege mode, which not nice. We can do better here.
Okay, are we committing to work on this, or do we just agree that this is an issue and we should triage it and throw it into the hopper, which we know will not result in action?
We should triage it and accept it, right? And then we start. It's not a high priority per se now, right? But it is a priority. Right?
Is it fair if I retitled it? Or actually, Cal, can you write a title that makes more sense? Because it sounds like it can run in non-privileged mode, but there are no tests proving that.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. Just a good title, but it's triage accepted now.
I think that's got to be the last one, Tim. We're at time
all right.
for triage.
Good enough.
Cool. Dan, you were next with Pod Has Network again.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up again. I think we talked about it like a month or 6 weeks ago. And I remember that we maybe had some concerns about it because if I remember correctly, it was adding a new pod phase or state, sandbox state that was like Pod Has Network. But that Pod Has Network was actually the end state encapsulating a bunch of other stuff, not just networking. It was relying on the fact that networking was one of the last things for a pod or something like that. So anyway,
yes.
I remembered that we had said, oh, we might have some concerns with this, and I wanted to see what the current status was, but it looks like some pieces of that had merged already.
It's merged and it's in 25.
Okay.
Yeah, ouch. And so I opened, I think you linked to my PR. Basically, I just touched every file, every line in the file so that I could add comments, which I don't know, maybe there's a better way, but I haven't gotten any response yet. I did, however, put us in the approvers list for the KEP. So it can't go to beta without having talked to us. We did some spelunking and it looks like Signode had some real conversations about maybe we should call this sandbox is ready. No, let's use network. And of course, we would have all argued that's completely the wrong decision. So communication breakdown for sure, but at least there's a stopper in place, so it shouldn't proceed without conversation.
Okay. All right.
I've been paying attention to it for this KEP cycle. I haven't seen any responses, and honestly, I haven't had a whole lot of time to just push real hard on it. So,
hey, this is Deep, by the way. I was driving that feature. So,
oh hey, how are you?
So just saw that item in the SIGNet agenda, and therefore wanted to drop by.
Excellent.
Yeah, as you say, Tim, it was exactly the case. Like we started off with more like a sandbox ready, being like a more appropriate name for the condition, but there were some concerns around that in Signode, and basically the suggestion I got from approvers there was let's go with pod has network, with the idea that maybe later we can also have like pod has storage when like CSI volumes are up and like kind of evolve on that. That was kind of like the thought, which drove us towards pod has network, since networking, the IP address allocation was the last step that we found.
Yeah, I think unfortunately that's an implementation detail and not a guarantee. If you were to add something like has storage, I'm not sure how somebody would use it, because are we now making a guarantee that storage always happens before network or that they happen concurrently? And if we do eventually add multi-network, does has network mean has all networks or has some networks?
Has all volumes, has some volumes, and volumes are per containers, they are not per pod, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it sounded to me like the thing that you really need to know is the sandbox ready? So I'm struggling to understand why like sandbox ready isn't the right condition.
That was just a decision from Signode, basically.
So we don't need to hash it all out here. I filed a bunch of comments on that PR, that awful PR, which I'm happy to close in favor of a better mechanism, but I didn't know what it was. But I'd love to discuss at some point. I know we have a very packed agenda today, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But if you've got a few free minutes, I'm not expecting any major changes for this KEP cycle since it's not moving forward to beta, right? So, but before it does move to beta, we should spend some quality time talking about it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks for coming by.
Thanks.
We can always go like medieval and have SIG network, Signode fighting in an open field until we figure it out.
I like
with
it.
Swords and shields.
Cal versus Derek, what's your weapon of choice?
Spear, always a spear. Slug.
Here's a solid choice. Bridget, I think you're next.
Cool. Yeah, this one should be pretty brief too. This is basically more cross SIG battles and swords and spears. Actually, not a battle at all. SIG cloud provider just wants to make sure that SIG network is okay with the proposed solution to a corner case bug fix here. We have a packed agenda, so we don't have to talk about it in a ton of detail, but the TLDR is a request came through saying, well, can we please make the docs a little bit better? The docs have now been improved, or at least a PR is in to improve the docs. And I think it would be pretty great to get this corner case fixed, because it's basically not every cloud provider handles things this way, but if they do, if the IP changes, then we could have undefined behavior with respect to routes, and it would be better to not have undefined behavior and have it handled. So
do we allow
the
node
request,
IPs?
Yeah.
Do we allow node IPs to change? Like, is that a thing that we normally deal with?
Yes, it is in fact
Cool.
possible. And I think Andrew Sykem, I see, is on the call, and he has a lot more understanding of this part of the code base too. Andrew?
So my understanding was that we allow the status to change, of course, but then the way different consumers, like the expectation from different consumers could be different. So like the main case that comes up a lot is the pod IP for host network pods. Like if the node status changes, we don't like recreate pods to have that updated IP. So yeah, I think like when it came up in the SIG cloud protocol, we were basically okay with route controller applying the change, but it would be good to know, like it'd be good to actually document it for the status field or for the addresses field, like what consumers should expect from that field and how it should change and whatnot. Because there's no mention of like what we actually do if it changes.
Yeah, does route controller even care about node IP?
Yes.
I know it cares about pod cider. Does it cares about node IP?
Yes, because it's the next hop. It's next hop.
There are definitely implementations that don't care about the node IP because they just need to know like the instance ID.
That's right.
Yeah, but then there could be like custom implementations that actually need to check the IP for the next type or whatnot.
So is the request then we should just document that node IP can change and controllers should be aware of that? Or is it actually to fix route controller?
I think that the request that I'm bringing is, can people from SIG Network take a look at this code change and see if they agree that the code change actually is acceptable and that the docs changes, which are also linked in there, cover what we think they should cover. Because the requested docs changes in theory have been made, but maybe they are not exactly what we need. But yeah, just looking to see, like, does SIG Network think that we've covered everything yet? If not, we would love to keep iterating on it.
Who wants to take this? Andrew, are you okay? Well, let's see. On the assigned to it right now are Cal and Antonio and Dan, and not Andrew on this PR 108095. Who wants to own it?
So I think ultimately there's like an API docs change that needs to happen. So
it'll end up being me.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm happy to like help review it and refine it a bit more. And I know like Dan Winship also has some opinions about like how we should handle node address changes. So maybe we can review it and then assign it to you when it's good.
All right. I'm going to let you guys fight it all out. And then I'm not going to have a chance to look at non-KEP PRs in the next week anyway. So you guys go fight it out. And then when I circle back to it, we'll see what it is. Awesome. Next.
You.
Next was Dan Winship.
Yeah, so session affinity, like it is not very consistently implemented or implementable, and yet we have conformance level tests for it. And this in particular came up because two different non-conformant implementations happened to pass by me in the same week. And I was like, okay, we should like do something about this. But in particular, like we're adding a feature to OVN just so that we can make OVN Kubernetes implement timeouts in the way that the conformance tests require them to work. And I'm pretty sure that like we know that other implementations also have problems with this. And in particular, we actually changed the conformance test because IPVS couldn't pass it as it was originally written. So I'm wondering if we should like loosen the sense of conformance around affinity. And also if anybody knows of other examples of plugins that have trouble implementing it the way it's currently specified.
And or better document our expectations around it so that you don't have to say or go investigate the IP tables or the IPVS code necessarily to know what the behavior should be.
And you're specifically, Dan, this is specifically about timeouts?
More about timeouts than anything else, although apparently some like Contrail apparently does not, or implements per flow rather than per client IP address, and I don't actually know what that means. I just saw this text.
So that was the one that I'm aware of. That I think actually between IPVS and IP tables it's different, which is one uses client IP, the other uses client IP and source port. 3 tuple versus 5 tuple, or I guess it'd be 4 because destination port matters. But so, and like our affinity is called client IP, but I think kubeproxy implements it by IP and port, or at least the IP tables mode does, or maybe I've got that backwards. I forget the details. So yes, it is at best ambiguous, and sort of at worst unresolvable. We can't change either one. So the best we could do would be define new consts and with clear semantics and deprecate the old one. So two bugs for your hopper.
Define new what? Sorry, new const?
Define a new constant. Like
Constants,
instead of setting client affinity to client IP, it would be client IP only and client IP port, for example, right? And then those are clear semantics, and the old one is whatever the implementation defined affinity to mean.
So what are your opinions overall on like, should we try to have a very locked down definition of how session affinity works? Or,
I mean, the more we lock it down, the more we're going to find cases that don't implement it at all, that can't implement what we define, right?
Right.
So I guess I'm in favor of strategically loosening it, as long as it doesn't lose its value.
So what would you say about making the conformance tests non-conformance for now?
All of them, or specifically for timeout? Or is that all the same test?
Pretty sure there are different tests. Like different ones specific.
Yeah, I honestly have not looked at those tests in forever. If that's the, yeah, I don't have a problem with relaxing that. I have to think about what the implications are really, like how many of these APIs we're going to end up with that are partially supported. But
there are two specific tests that test affinity timeout. The rest of them are just general affinity.
So maybe make the timeout ones non-conformance and start a cap to figure out if we can define a new session affinity value or set of values that is more generally implementable.
Yeah.
So IP tables uses contract for session affinity. IPVS uses its own thing for session affinity, and that's where the difference is.
That's right.
We may want to define session affinity meaning per proxy type, but that opens up a whole lot of mess.
Yeah, I mean, we have to decide what does it mean for, for Cilium or for other OVN implementations that are using neither IPVS nor contract. Like, what are they supposed to implement? Well, and I'm not even arguing that what we have is the right thing. What we have is what fell out of the IP tables and user space implementations, right? Without awareness.
Does user space even implement it?
I'm not even sure if user space implements it. I seem to recall writing something that was having some timeout. But
I guess it wouldn't have been that hard to do.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm fine with dialing down the conformance on that, though, specifically the timeout tests.
Okay.
Okay.
I listed those two tests at the top. Just FYI.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks all. Avolts.
Hi, Andy. I've been joining recently, just following the service internal traffic policy PR, but it seems like recently there's is some debate in the KEP PR, and I just was wondering if this feature, I was just looking for like status on the feature. I'm trying to work a bit with Andrew to add tests, but I know Dan raised questions about the routing or the availability of services when this feature is enabled. So I wasn't sure if for my use I should investigate other solutions.
So I haven't looked at all the conversations yet. I did see them. I was spending my time first on unmerged KEPs, but my experience talking with customers is that there are some cases where the semantically correct thing to do is fail if I can't reach this service. It's like my node's agent, and I don't want to use anybody else's agent, and I'd rather fail and reconnect later. That doesn't mean that the sort of prefer mode is wrong. And Dan, I've got your KEP next on my queue, the topology one. So I don't think that it has to be either or. I've not read all of the arguments about whether ITP is wrong.
One of the things I said is that given that semantic and use case, it means that internal traffic policy local and external traffic policy local have almost nothing to do with each other. Like they mean completely different things, right?
Yes.
And so maybe if we do want that semantic, internal traffic policy isn't the right name for it. And especially people seem to want that same thing at the cluster level in the multi-cluster networking thing, where you have a service that means different things in different clusters. And theoretically, maybe you would want it at the zone level.
So yes, I've in the past argued that we need something like a daemon set for zones. But I have not tried to write that KEP yet because it makes my head spin. But cluster we already get in the form of services, right? Like a cluster service is always going to be cluster local, and a multi-cluster service is going to be potentially multi-cluster. So that's resolved, but zonal or regional, well, which hopefully nobody's doing multi-regional, but we don't actually forbid it. So having some concept like that is probably true. I know your topology change, or your KEP rather, changed from a prefer local ITP into something topology oriented. Does that get closer? It feels like a topology problem, doesn't it?
The prefer local version?
I mean, or prefer same zone or prefer region. Like we talked about it in the past.
I mean, we have prefer same zone already, right? That's what topology aware hints is.
Well, it's a little different. Like usually when we hear people say prefer same X, it's use the same X unless it's not available and then overflow. Whereas topology tries to balance things a little bit more heuristically. Like there might be an endpoint in your zone, but it's not assigned to you. So you're going to cross zones, poor you.
Do we do that?
Yeah.
I thought we only did that if there weren't any endpoints in your zone.
No,
anyway,
we try to balance it out. Like there's a few outs where topology just goes, I can't resolve this safely and just punts, right?
Yeah, it is. We have a lack of a feedback mechanism, so there's no way to know if something's full to trigger a waterfall mechanism. So you basically just have to try your best to give each zone a reasonable proportional number of endpoints and hope for the best. And that's topology aware hints.
So anyway, on the service and the internal traffic policy, I feel like we really ought to remove the DNS example from the KEP because nobody wants their DNS to fail completely when a pod is being updated. But other than that, I had suggestions but not strong objections. So
okay,
you'll see that when you get to it, I guess.
Okay, I do hope to get to that today or tomorrow. And I promised Andrew that if I don't get to it today or tomorrow, we'll sit on a call and go through it together next week so that we can pay attention. I would like to see it move forward. I do think it's a reasonable thing, but I want to consider, Dan, what you're saying with this idea of prefer. I was initially against prefer in any form, but I've softened on that after talking to real users. So Now it's just a matter of figuring out what the right way to describe it is. And I'm fine to remove the DNS use case. That I agree with.
Thanks. Thanks for discussing that.
Thanks, Andy. Then the last topic was from Surya.
Yeah, I'm actually implementing topology-aware hints downstream in OVN Kubernetes plugin. And I almost had it implemented, but I had this corner case that I wanted to ask, and maybe this has already been revisited. I'm sorry if I'm wasting time and if it's already been discussed. But my question was the definition of originates from a zone, and a zone being defined by the labels on the node. So a specific set of nodes could be in the same zone. How does that play with node ports on, let's say if you have two different zones and then you have, you're trying to reach a node port service on the other node from, I guess the example that I've mentioned on the doc, where you have two different zones and then two different nodes, but then you're trying to reach the node port on the other zone. Does that count as coming from outside? Is it, I guess the question is, how do you deal with traffic coming from external clients towards load balancers or node ports with topology-aware hint services? Is that considered outside of any zone, or the originating from a zone is specific to within the cluster, like within pods and nodes, or how does it play with clients outside?
Yeah, at least I've thought of it as something that the logic starts when it hits kubeproxy. I'm open to other interpretations of that. But at least right now, the idea is that based on the configuration of topology-aware hints, when that request reaches or connection reaches that specific zone, that specific node and kubeproxy on it, kubeproxy will ideally not route traffic outside of the zone that kubeproxy is in, ideally. I don't know if that is, or go ahead.
No, so if I understand what you're saying correctly, if traffic is coming from a node in zone A and it's going towards a node in zone B, because the traffic will leave the node, right? And then it'll enter zone B again. We still consider the traffic as originating from zone B and not zone A, because it's left its zone and it's gone outside and it's now external traffic, right?
So I'm trying to understand.
Are you accessing the node port from within the cluster?
Yes, within the cluster. But not your same node port, but another node. So if your pod is on node A, and then if you have a node port service, the pod on node A is trying to access the node port of node B, for example.
So I think in the past, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, we decided that was external traffic, right?
Yes, for external traffic policy, that's how we treat it. But when you think about topology-aware hints, the node A is also in a zone, right? So it's in the zone A.
Sure.
And then,
but if you're intentionally reaching out to node B and hitting its node port, then your zone doesn't matter, because it only begins once it comes in the external destination or whatever. Did we come up with a word for that? The node port is an external entry point. So that's, I think, when the topology begins.
Okay, yeah, that was what I was expecting as well, because as I implemented it, I realized that this corner case for zones, if we don't go with this definition, then I would have to start considering the endpoints of other nodes when I...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And then if you were to try to be extra smart, you would go from zone A to zone B and back to zone A, and then the response would, of course, go from A back to B and back to A again, versus once you land in B, you say, well, I'm going to stay in B. So you go to A to B and back to A. So that's the optimal path, given that you've already made a bad choice of node.
Yeah, thank you. That was my question. And so can we document this, or is this still open? Like, I brought this up for external and internal traffic policy as well, and I keep asking Dan Winship downstream a lot. I just keep bugging him on, because I get confused all the time. So is it possible to like draw this out in the KEP or maybe somewhere else where this is how we treat a zone as. So if you're coming from outside, then wherever you land, that's your zone. You cannot.
Yeah, I'm happy to update the KEP or update API docs. Unfortunately, the way our API docs work, there isn't a good place to like write about the theory of operation and how the whole thing works. It's really kind of per struct and per field. So if you have a moment, I would love for you to propose a like API docs change in the comments on the API so that that'll go into the generated code, the generated API docs, I mean.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can do that totally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Nobody better to write docs than the person who just had to figure them out.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And thanks, Dan Winship. I guess this solves the question. I always ask you and I end up getting confused. So I thought I'll just bring it up here to the larger team. Thanks.
That's why we're all here. That's why we have such a broad bench of experts now. And that's the end of our agenda. I'm impressed. I thought for sure we were
through that.
I thought for sure this was going to take 2 days worth of time. So we have KubeCon coming up. Yes. Did we decide last week that we're canceling? We canceled October 27, but we have one more meeting before KubeCon, right? So who?
I think we have one in 2 weeks, right?
Yes, right. Two weeks from now before KubeCon. Yeah. Are we doing a SIGNet deep dive? Who's driving that if we are?
Yeah, we've got, a lot of people on this call, actually. We've got Andrew, Syria, myself, and Bowie are going to be leading that.
Cool. So call out now again for anybody who wants to get their work mentioned in that. Reach out to one of those people and make sure that they're aware of. They're going to do a good job spelunking on their own, but if you want your stuff mentioned specifically, call it out.
Yeah, I think now we have Gateway API, KPNG, admin network policy. So if there's other stuff, yell it out.
Ooh, Andrew, while you're on my screen, when we were doing triage, there's a question about, we didn't get to it. Actually, do we have time? We just run back to triage?
Yeah, why not?
Wait, did we talk about the disable flag? Oh no, I closed it. So there's an issue open where somebody was asking for a disable field on network policy. It sounds reasonable. It's pretty common in firewalling APIs, I guess. But I wanted to flag with you on ANP, because if we're going to consider adding it to netpol, we might consider adding it to admin netpol.
Yeah, 100%. I'll keep that in mind for the second iteration. Everyone's kind of chugging through implementations right now, I believe. So after that, awesome. I think we'll also have some more info. And there is a website now, by the way. I posted it in the Slack, but go check it out. We spent a lot of time putting that together. So
cool.
Feedback.
I can't tell you how many users and customers I talk to who ultimately what they want is admin network policy. So
that's what Dan's been telling me too. So hopefully.
It comes up all the time, and I point it out to people and they go, oh, that sounds like just what I need. So
yeah, I also just submitted a talk for the contributor summit to give a quick overview with Surya on it. Surya's been starting to help out a lot there. So I'm getting some new folks in the community, and it's going great.
Excellent. I will be there, not doing a SIGNet talk. I will be at KubeCon. I see in the chat. I'm doing a talk on something else, but I'll be there for sure. So we should have a SIGNet get together. Maybe next meeting we'll plan a meeting time. Okay.
For sure. Be awesome.
Anybody else has more agenda? Oh, I would like to bring one up. Sorry that I didn't get to throw on the agenda. The KEP about load balancer backend set. Apparently we've got some bug in the previous changes that we made, changing load balancer backend sets. I see people on Slack working on diagnosing right now. I'm going to propose that for this KEP cycle, we we don't proceed with the KEP 1111. And we instead focus on settling down what we've already got, making sure that the tests are actually good. And then we push forward with 1111 in the next release. Alexander, is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I need to think about it. I'm a bit stressed right now with all of this going on, but I'll try to work out. But I completely see your point, and I guess that's completely normal.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the issue is. I see there's some chatter going on even as we're talking here. But given that we missed it before and there's already an open PR and we still don't quite understand how it relates to Autoscaler because they haven't responded yet, let's just not overload too much.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Kyle's asking if someone can post a link to the KEP.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
If the project board is updated with it, I can go look there. I was trying to pick up the pieces since I came back.
It should be on the project board. Let me go look. It's a good question. Here's the KEP link though in the chat.
By the way, I'm updating that KEP. It's just that it's locally on my computer. I'm going to push it maybe in a day or two.
1111 is not on the project board. Interesting. I will make sure it is on the project board. Thank you for calling that out. It is now on the project board. We want to run through the project board if we've got a few minutes.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes.
That would help me a lot. Thank you.
Sure. All right, let me share a window. Where are you? I have entirely too many windows open. Can I search? Search? No. Oh my gosh, what's it? Oh, it's in a different work screen. Oh, are you kidding? Move to workspace left. Share. Tab. Is there a search? There's no search window. I cannot find it among all my windows. This is a total fail on my part. The SIG network KEPs, there we are. Aha. Where you see it? Yes?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So a few things, let's go from the end. Dual stack. Cal, are you going to send a PR to remove the gate?
Sure.
We can move that to the removed category, which means we have nothing in the GA category. So let's see what we can move into GA. And Tony, this just moved into beta, or did this just move into beta 25? I forget now.
Yes, it's beta in 25.
So we could go GA in 26 if we think we're good with it. Antonio's not here, but that would be a candidate. We talked about ITP earlier.
Yes, I think this one, I think we can move it. I might need to write more docs. I need to look at that, but
okay.
But it's already beta gated on. So, or sorry, like it's already on by default for people because it went in before the beta status changed. So I don't think it's going to be a giant disruption for people for it to be on by default because it's already on by default.
Great. These are the ones that I need to all flag as opting into the main project board. So if you send me a PR, I will flag the KEP. If we don't, then it'll wait till next cycle. Not you, Bridget, but you, everybody. gRPC probes. Bowie or Rob, do you know anything if we want to push that forward?
Yeah. Let me just follow up on this. I think we were just waiting for some feedback. I don't know if anyone tried it out.
Okay. I think all of these, this whole category is candidates to move to GA. Topology is probably the least ready. Rob?
Well, it's sat in beta for a while, and I do want to at least update the KEP. I would love to get it to GA soon. I don't want it to just stay perma beta like many things. I've been amazed in the past month or two. The amount of feedback has definitely picked up, and in many cases, it is working as intended. And the only thing is, it's more confusing than one would like to figure it out, because not everyone has access to controller logs, for instance. So I'm thinking of publishing some more events in place, when transitions happen and why. But I would love to try to get this to GA, if not in this cycle, the next. I will have a KEP update in the next week, before the deadline. Yeah.
So everybody who's got a KEP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5, if you send a PR in the next few days and you move the PR to GA, know that it will have to get a PR glance at least. Rob, for example, if you're changing the number of events and sort of stuff that we send, then it will need a little bit more than just a glance. Please don't send them on like Wednesday and hope that they'll get done by Thursday. So the sooner we can get these in, the better. If they don't make it, they don't make it. Like, I'm not telling anybody to work on the weekend or anything, right? But these all seem like candidates to move GA. That would be exciting. Moving backwards in the queue, network policy status, I think this is paused for the moment, right, Ricardo? No, Ricardo. Okay.
You have to drop.
Okay.
That's right, though.
I
proxy
think
terminating.
Paused.
Andrew, did we decide if proxy terminating is moving forward? Is that the PR that you sent me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Extended DNS config. Ooh, I lost track of this one. I think that's on me to go poke the contributor. And tracking terminating is the same boat. Network policy port range.
Actually, sorry, tracking terminating is beta gated.
It is already beta gated?
Yeah, it's in beta in 20G.
Why is it dragging 2? Just drag 1. Interesting. Okay. Cool. So that's not going GA this cycle then, right?
I have a PR to have it go GA since it was in beta since 122, but
okay. I'm fine. I think I'm fine with it. And we talked before. This is what we talked about the other day, right? I'm fine with it if we think it's ready.
Yeah, there was a lot of like scalability testing that I had to do with some folks on the GK team, and that all came out green. So,
okay,
I think, yeah.
All right, I'll put it in the same category then. If you send a PR, I'll be happy to look at it and move it to GA. Port range, I can follow up with Ricardo and see what we're going to do there. This is all async. We should figure out how to represent that better. And IP tables chain ownership, Dan, is that
has to stay in alpha for 2 releases so that upgrades will work. So it's not doing anything this release.
Can you go to this issue and update the milestone to 27, or can you do that?
Oh well, it's right. Yeah. Okay. I don't have milestone bits, so since you're there.
All right. 27. No. What? Did we not have a 1.27? 1.20. We have one for 1.25. We do not have a milestone. Create and assign to new milestone. Sure. Oops, I screwed up. V 1.27. Already. I wonder if I can delete that milestone. Somebody's going to get mad at me. Oh well. Okay, and then pre-alpha stuff, that's not making any progress. Service siders, that's still, I know Antonio's trying to get it in the cycle, so that would be pre-alpha. Kube proxies ping. IP tables restore, we've approved, is that approved now, Dan? I forget, you got a PRR from Wojciech, right?
Yeah. Maybe he's waiting for you to re-LGTM it. I don't know.
Okay, I'll spin through it again, but that looks like we're going to...
Literally the only change was just changing the PRR reviewer, so.
Okay, so we'll push that in. That'll hopefully move to the alpha column this cycle.
Tim, quick note on the KPNG one. Like, I'm pretty sure the community is assembling to where we're going to be asking for more review on the KEP there. Like, not necessarily looking to move it anywhere, but we're getting to the point where it's mature enough that we need the rest of SIGNet's opinion on how to move forward.
Excellent. I was at a conference last week and I happened to see Thomas from Cilium, and I mentioned Kaping and I asked, hey, are you guys tracking this? Because like, if Kaping doesn't make your life easier, then Kaping isn't doing its job. And he said that they would go make sure that they were paying attention.
I mean, I implemented a POC of an eVPF backend over there and he hacked it like a long time ago. So he's aware of it.
Okay. I'm sure he's got a million threads that he needs to link together, but that's great. Yes, I would love to see us push forward on that one. Dual stack API server support, that's another Dan ship. Nothing happening there, right?
Yeah, nothing happening there.
Okay. Don't feel bad. There's so many things going on. All ports I know is stalled. Node IPAM multi-siter.
Is it stalled? Is it stalled as in people are not working on it, or it's looking for people to work on it? Do you know?
All ports was stalled on like all the possible implementation avenues were kind of terrible, and the person who was working on it from Google changed teams. So
okay.
It will fall off the list if nobody picks it up.
Quick
I'll
time
find
check.
somebody
We're at 10 o'clock now.
Cool. Everybody, when you get a minute, if you have KEPs open, go look at them, look at the milestone, make sure that the milestone represents the right next milestone for us to touch. And let me know if you think it's in the wrong place on the board here.
Great. Well, that's definitely time. So we'll see each other again in 2 weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.